Hello, this is M. Welcome to my channel. Today we are going to have an overview about 50 simple Excel shortcuts. So those Excel shortcuts are actually key combinations that you can use in Excel to be more efficient. Those shortcuts, or the shortcuts that you are going to see today, are applicable to a Windows operating system with the relevant keyboard, and you can use it at any time in most of the Excel versions that we have today. I would like also to highlight the fact that we are going to see a set of key combinations where you're going to see and hear me saying plus. Keep in mind that that plus only stands for the combination of the two keys, and you don't need to press the plus key at any time. So when we will have a shortcut combination requiring to press on the plus, I will mention it just for you to be sure. Yeah, now I actually need to press the plus key. So let's start with the very first part. Will be the theory about these shortcuts, and the second part will be a hands-on, a practical application where we are going to see live the shortcuts happening in Excel, just for you to better understand how each one of them are working. The first category that we have for the shortcuts is the control and the letter. So we are going to see now a set of shortcuts where we have the control and, for instance, the letter N for new workbook. So if you have the Excel application open and you press on Control N, that will create a new workbook. Why you need to have the Excel application open is just that your operating system is unable to understand what you actually mean by Control N if you don't have the Excel open and selected. But if you have it with or without a document there, by pressing Control and N will create a new workbook. If you have a previously saved workbook, then you can simply press on Control O from open a saved workbook. That is self-explanatory. So N from new, O from open, and moving ahead, S from save. So if you are going to press the Control and the S, that will save your workbook. So if you previously saved your workbook and you have the name, you have the location, that will not do anything visible, will simply save your new version of the document. If it's the first time that you are saving the document, the saving window will pop up and ask you about the name, about the location, and you can also click on the link more options to change the format of your Excel. If you want to have a standard Excel workbook or a binary Excel workbook or a macro enabled workbook or whatever format you want to use, you will have it there. Then we have the option to close the current workbook. By pressing the Control W for workbook, that will close your current workbook without closing the Excel application. That's very, very important, because if you are working with multiple Excel documents and you need to close one, and for instance to create a new one or to open a previously created one, then you can press on the Control W and to close that current workbook. Alternatively, you can also press on Control and F4. That will do exactly the same thing, will close your workbook. Keep in mind that the F4, the functions need to be activated at your keyboard level. So in some cases you might add an additional key related to the functions, or you might need to change some settings. But if you have the functions active and you are pressing Control and F4, that will close your Excel workbook. And as a bonus, if you want to close not only the Excel workbook, not only your document, but the Excel application, then you can press on the Alt and F4 and that will close your Excel application. Moving ahead, we have the shortcut, which is based on Alt and F and C. That will save and close your workbook. Most of the time you are going to notice some windows showing up and then nothing. So it will be quite fast for you to save and close your workbook. If you are in a hurry, I strongly recommend you to use that shortcut, Alt FC, because that could work perfectly for you. If you have specific needs in saving or closing your workbook, then just let me know and we can dive deep into that. If you want to select everything in your workbook, you can press and Control A from all, and that will select everything that you have in your workbook, and that will allow you to apply a mass function, or to make a mass change, or to do whatever you want at the general level of your workbook. So Control A will select all the contents in your workbook. If you want to play with the formatting, for instance, you want to turn your cell or a specific range into bold, you can press on Control B from bold, or alternatively you can press on Control and 2, the key 2, to have the selected cells as bold, to show as bold. If you are pressing 2 times, so if I'm pressing the first time Control B, that will turn bold, my content, and I can press it again, Control B, and that will reverse the action, or I can simply press on Control 2. So there is no difference between the two shortcuts. The two are doing exactly the same in let's say a straightforward direction, or in a reverse as a reverse action, as you wish. The Control I is the shortcut that will allow you to change to italic your selected cells. So you can either choose the Control I or the Control 3, and that will allow you to do exactly the same thing as we mentioned for bold, to place the formatting as italic, or to reverse it if you are pressing it for the second time using the same shortcut, or each one of the two that you can see here, Control I and Control 3. If you want to use the underline formatting and you want to have the shortcut used, you can press on the Control U from underline, or alternatively you can press on Control 4. That will turn your selected cells into a underline formatting. Please do keep in mind, as I referred in the other videos, whenever you are able to avoid the underline, do it. Why? Because that could create a sort of confusion with a hyperlink. Please keep in mind that we got used to have the links with the underline. So to avoid having people clicking on your underline formatting thinking that there's hyperlink there, that might be a bit confusing and misleading. If you actually need to use it, of course use it, but keep this recommendation in mind, because that could be useful for your user experience or even for your own use. The Control Shift and F, that will be one of the shortcuts that will open the format cells option. So it's Control Shift and formatting, so like being in control, making a shift, and formatting, that shifting to be related to formatting. And for the formatting, you will have a pop-up window with the type of formatting, so if it's a number, percentage, currency, text, whatever, and also the layout option regarding the font type, the font size, the font options that we have from a formatting perspective. So anything related to formatting can be quickly accessed through Control Shift and F. The well-known CTRL C, the copy, the C from copy, is very, I think it's almost generally known, but worth being mentioned here, that will copy the cells that are highlighted. And if we want to place the copy of those cells, we can use the CTRL V, which is also well known. One thing that I notice is that when we want to copy, to paste the values, we think about pasting, we think about P. Don't do it. Think about the visualization, to visualize the same data in a different cell, because that's actually the meaning of the shortcut. Because the CTRL P stands for printing your Excel worksheet. So in the other videos we discussed about how to create the best layout for printing. So keep in mind that if you are going to press on CTRL P for printing, you are going to have the option to preview your data in a specific format, the format that you wish. You'll be having all the printing options, but I would recommend you to prepare your Excel worksheet before printing it, because not always the printing layout is the best as we are using the Excel application. The CTRL X will cut the cells like scissors. So X like scissors will cut the cells that are highlighted. Meaning that if I'm using the CTRL C and the CTRL V, I'm copying and pasting the data. The same data will be populated into the destination cells. If I'm cutting those cells will be transported, will be moved to the new destination. So the cut will simply take the data from one specific location and will place it where you want them to have. The CTRL Z, thinking about the A to Z action, so the Z will be the last action. If you want to undo or reverse it, you can use that CTRL Z. So let me think that I made a change, and then I realized that that change is not perfect, or is not what I actually need or want to have. What I can do is to press on CTRL and Z, and that will reverse my last action. The CTRL Y will reverse the last reverse action. So thinking that I realized that my last reverse action was not the best, I can choose that shortcut to reverse the last undo or reverse action. That could be also useful and is not very used, but can be very useful. If you want to fill the data with the content of the cell above, so let's say that you have a text, you have some numbers, you have something in the cell above, you can replicate it in the cell below by pressing the CTRL D. If you want to fill the data in the right using the content that you have in the left, you can press on CTRL R. Keep in mind that that could be slightly misleading. So why am I pressing on the CTRL R if I'm taking the data from the cells from the left? As far as I see it, is that I'm replicating the data from the left to the right. So my shortcut is based on my goal, which is to populate to the right. So this is why I'm pressing on CTRL R, using the content from the left. So that will simply take the same content with the same formatting to the right from the left. The CTRL F will find something in your workbook. So as you will see in the practical application, we will have a pop-up window with two tabs, and the first tab will be the find something in the worksheet or the workbook. So we can find something at the sheet level or at the entire document level. We can choose where to lookup for the data, and then we can find one by one, we can find them all, we can have a list of references found by Excel. So we have all those options. If we want to replace something, we have actually two options. That would be the most efficient one, to press under Control and H to replace the contents from the selected sheet or the entire workbook as you wish. Alternatively, if you are pressing, like we just saw, under the Control F, Find, and you go to the following tab, that's actually the replace. The pop-up window is called Find and Replace, and the Control F will go directly to the Find tab from the same pop-up window, and the Control H will go directly to the Replace tab within the same window. And again, for replacing, you can choose if you want to replace at the sheet level, the workbook level. You can replace them one by one, all together, all at once. The Control K will insert a hyperlink in a cell. So you might think that the K stands for the last letter from hyperlink. So if you want to add a hyperlink in a cell, you can use the Control and K shortcut. What a hyperlink in Excel means is that you can add an external reference, as we were discussing for the underline shortcut, that will create the link and also highlight it with the downline. Or you can create a link between two cells within the same document. That might be two cells from the same worksheet, or two cells from different worksheets within the same workbook. So you can also create that kind of connection, that link between two cell references. Or you can also link it to an email. You can do we will see that you can do a lot of things by inserting a hyperlink, but getting back to the topic, the shortcut is Control and K. If you want to jump into a specific cell reference, you can press on Control G, which will allow you to simply type your cell reference. Let me give you an example about this. I'm at cell column M, row 1001. So I'm at M1001 and I want to go quickly to A1. One of the options that I have is to press on the Control G and there to type A1, and that will make me jump directly to that cell reference. So I will take the Control G to go to a cell reference. If I want to create a table, a dynamic table, then the shortcut will be to press on Control T from table, or alternatively I can press on Control L, and that will open the Create Table dialog box, which will ask me about the range. We will see in the practical application how we can select the ranges before opening that option or after we selected that option. But the shortcut is Control T or Control L to have the Create Table dialog box. If you are pressing on the Alt, F and T, the three keys together, that will open your Excel options. What are the Excel options? Are the settings at the Excel application level. So those are not linked to the main menu, to the horizontal menu, the document menu, but are the Excel options where you can choose the default formatting, the formulas, how Excel will actually work, proofreads your data, saves your data, and so on and so forth. An alternative to getting that Excel options pop-up window is to right-click at the main menu level, the horizontal menu, and then to select the customized ribbon, and the same window will show up. But the first selected option will be, in that case, customize ribbon. So it's up to you if you prefer to go to Alt FT or to go to the customize ribbon. However, that could be very useful to use it. Keep in mind that in most cases we are not going to change the Excel options all the time like we do with the other shortcuts that are very common and can be used quite often. The next shortcut category is control and the number. And now let's see which kind of numbers we might have. Number 1 usually is the first one that will open the formatting pop-up window. So if I'm pressing Ctrl 1, the format option will pop up, and I will be able again to do exactly the same as we saw before, to change the formatting to a numbering, percentage, currency, whatever, or even to change the formatting at the layout level. So to make it bold, italic, change the font, and so on and so forth. If I want to strike through a cell, so to have that horizontal middle line at the content level, I can simply press on Ctrl and 5. If I want to see the outline symbols, if I have them, and if my workbook is applicable for that option, I can press on the Ctrl and 8. If I want to hide a row, let's say that I'm in a specific cell with or without data, and I want to hide that specific row, I can either go to that specific row where we have the numbers, the row numbers, right click and click hide, or I can simply press on Ctrl and 9, and that will hide my row. That might not always work if you have a dynamic table, so please do keep that in mind. If you have a column that you want to hide it, so for instance, I'm in the cell and I don't want to hide the row, but I want to hide a column, I can go at the usually letter level of the column, right click and click hide, or I can simply use the shortcut Ctrl and 0. And again, that could not always work in dynamic tables. Usually it does, but you can keep in mind your shortcuts, just being sure that you can use them whenever applicable. And now let's move ahead with the shortcut category, which is Control key and a symbol. And by symbol, I mean any kind of symbol. If you are pressing on Control, Shift and colon, then your current time will be entered in that specific cell. And when I mean current time, that will be actually your operating system time. So keep in mind that this shortcut works perfectly in Excel if you have the current time correctly set up in your operating system. And for the column, you can simply imagine that stands for a clock. It's usually separating the hours and the minutes, or the minutes and the seconds. So you can use whenever you need that as a shortcut as well, because it's much faster than the traditional way. If you want to add the current date, and again, the current date means the date that you have at your operating system level, you can press on the Control and semicolon keys, and to have that current date added in a cell. If you want to copy the formula from the cell above, then you can press on the Control and single quote key. To copy the formula, you will be also able to see the formula that you have above. So that could be very useful when you actually need to replicate the same formula. If you want to delete columns or rows, again, you can go to the column level or to the row level, right click, click delete, or you can simply press on the Control and minus, and keep in mind that now it's actually the minus key. You can press on Control and minus key, and that will pop up a window for deleting columns or rows, so you can select what to delete. If you want to add or insert columns or rows, again, you can right click at the columns or the rows level and then click insert and click then what you want to insert. But you can also press on Ctrl plus, and here we have a plus, actually the plus key. This is why we have two pluses, because actually it's pressing on Control and the plus key on your keyboard to have the option to insert the columns or the rows. If you are pressing on the Control and spacebar, that will select your entire column. So if I'm in a specific cell and I want to select the entire column for that specific cell, I can press on the Control and spacebar. If I want to select the entire row, then I can press on Shift and spacebar. So that will allow me to select the entire row for the cell that I'm currently in. If I want to select the entire workbook, so actually it's a sort of select all, I can press on Ctrl, Shift and spacebar, and that will select my entire workbook. If I want to return to the first cell, I can press on the Ctrl and Home keys to return to the first cell. Here I mentioned A1. Usually the first cell is A1. But I would like to add here that if you have, for instance, a dynamic table, and you have a header for your dynamic table, as you always have, because you cannot have a dynamic table without a header, then by pressing Ctrl Home, we return to the first cell with data. So do the second row of your dynamic table on the first column. So in the practical application, you will better understand what I'm referring to, and to make the difference, or to see the difference between going to a specific cell or getting back home, like we see here. If you are pressing on the Ctrl and up arrow, that will go up to the next upper cell or to the top cell of your current column. If you have a few rows, not a lot of data, then you can simply click that specific cell. But if you have hundreds, thousands or tens of thousands of rows, then that option could be very, very useful for you to navigate through different levels of your data lines. If you are pressing on the Ctrl and down arrow, then you will go down to a cell. So go to a cell down, or the very bottom cell in the current column. If you are pressing on the Ctrl right arrow, that will go right to the following cell or to the last right cell in the current row. And lastly, if you click on the Ctrl and the left arrow, that will go left to the following cell left or the most left cell in the current row. So we are going to see all of that in action during the practical application. Don't be concerned, because it's only the theory now, and we are going to make the practice and see all of them work, and that will be very, very easy and straightforward. You'll see. If you want to select an entire range, let me imagine that I have 3 columns, A, B, C, and I have 10 rows, 1 to 10. And I can go with the mouse and select that part, and then, I don't know, create a dynamic table, change the formatting, do whatever I want. But if I have the columns from A to Z, and I have the rows from 1 to 1000, hoovering the range with the mouse or selecting with the mouse might not be that funny. What I can do is simply to go to the very first cell in the left, press on Ctrl, and then press simultaneously on the Shift, and then press the right until I have the end of the range that I want to have selected. Then release the right arrow key and press on the down arrow key until the end, the bottom end of my range, and that will select instantly my entire range, no matter how large it is. It can bring a dramatic plus in your efficiency, in your productivity. So again, in the practical application we will see that, but keep that shortcut Ctrl Shift right down arrows in your mind, because that's one of the key shortcuts, I would say, for Excel. If you have, let's imagine that you have a problem with your mouse, so by any reason you cannot use your mouse, and you need to access the menu, the Excel menu, horizontal menu, from your keyboard. That could be very useful if you are pressing only the Alt. So I wouldn't even say that's a shortcut, it's a function. If you're pressing on Alt, your menu option will have a letter label, and by using those labels you'll be able to navigate using your keyboard and no longer your mouse. And then to continue by accessing your windows, your menu, using the keys references that you have on your keyboard. If you are pressing the tab, so the tab with the left and right arrow and the vertical lines, that key will allow you to navigate to the next cell to the right. As you might know, or you already know, if you want to navigate to the bottom cell, you can simply press on Enter. So tab will navigate horizontally, Enter will navigate vertically through your cells. If you have, let's imagine that you have a couple of rows, and for each cell within those rows you have let's say a fruit. So you have apples, peaches and oranges, and then for the fourth cell you want to reuse one of them. You want to replicate oranges, and you don't want to go and copy paste oranges, because perhaps you have 3 or you have 1000 data references there. If you are pressing on Alt and down arrow, that will activate the filters and will allow you to have an instant filter to find the data that you have within that specific column, to use it without having the actual filter present. So again, in the practical application we'll see how that instant filter works, but Alt down arrow might be very useful in some cases when you need to reuse a reference that you had within the same column. If you want to add a new line, a new paragraph in your current cell, so I'm not referring to adding, for instance, multiple lines using multiple cells, so multiple rows. I'm referring to adding different lines within the same cell. For instance, here we have 2 lines. If I want to add the 2 lines within the same cell, I can go to the end of the first line and then press on Alt and Enter, and that will enter a new line within the same cell, and that line can be populated. So I can add something and then again press Alt Enter, go to the third one, and so on and so forth. So I can simply create a space between them. So I can create 2 lines separated by a spacer that can be used also with that specific shortcut with Alt Enter. The Control Alt and plus, again, here we have, you can see we have 2 pluses because we need to use the plus key. If you are pressing Control Alt and plus key simultaneously, that will zoom in your document, not your menu at the menu level, but will zoom in your document. If you are pressing Control Alt and the minus sign, then that will zoom out from your document. And now, as I mentioned before, let's go to the practical application and see all those shortcuts in actions. So let's move ahead with the practical application. Now in the practical application, we will see the shortcuts into action. So I would start with a highlight regarding how the Excel application open with the document close look like. It's exactly like we see it here. You can see that the menu is graded out, and also the data at the analytics level, it's graded out too. So this is actually Excel, the application as itself. If we want to start practicing the shortcuts that we saw, we can start by pressing on the Control and N from new together. And now we have the new document created. This is how the new document looks like. And now we have the application open and the document open too. If we had a previously saved document, in that case, we were able to click on Control and O from Open, a previously saved workbook. In our case, we only have this workbook, which was just created. If we want to save it, we can press on the Control and S from Save, and the pop-up window will look like this. So we have the name here, we can choose the location, or we can go into more options to select a specific location, or even to change the Excel format. So to save it as standard Excel workbook, or binary workbook, or macro enable workbook, or whatever kind of format we wish to have. So the Control S from save is going to open that window that we can close now. If we want to close the workbook but not the Excel application, we can press the Control W from workbook, and it will get back to this main view. So here we have again the Excel application open with no document open. Let's get back, roll back, and create a new one, still with Control N from new. And let's test also the Control F4, function 4, which will do exactly the same thing. We were saying that if you want to close not only the document, so let me create a new one, but also the application, you can press on Alt F4, which will also close the application, like this. You can see that now Excel is closed by simply pressing the Alt F4, and Control F4 will close the document. If we want to save and close the workbook, we can press with two hands, because we need to keep press the 3 key at a time. We can press on Alt FC, and you can see that we have a very quick switch between windows, and now the document is saved and closed. Let's reopen it with Control New, Control N, and if we press on Control A from all, we are going to select the entire range. You can see that even if I'm scrolling to the right or I'm scrolling down, I have actually the same thing. So you can see that everything is actually selected. Alternatively, what you can do, you can go between the columns and the rows where you have this small triangle, and if you press it here, it will do exactly the same thing. Now, let's say that we have some letters here, A, B, C, D. If I want to turn that cell into a bold cell, I can press on Control B from bold, and you can see that now it's bold. If I'm pressing again the Control B, it's turning to the previous state. If I'm pressing on the Control 2, we'll get back to bold, and if I'm pressing again to Control 2, back normal. So let me turn it back to Control B to bold, and let's move by pressing Enter to the following cell. This cell, let's say that we want to have it in italic, so I can press on Control I, and you can see that now we have the italic format. The same would be available with Control 3, which does exactly the same thing. If I want to underline a cell, let me press Enter. I can underline it by pressing the Control U from underline, or the Control 4, which removes the function or activates exactly the same function. But regarding the underline, we were referring as the difference between the underline and the hyperlink. Let me add here another C and add the shortcut Control K, which stands for adding a hyperlink. And here let me take www dot something. And let me also make it darker black. You can see that there is no difference between the two of them. Here I have the small hands when I'm going with the mouse with a hover on it. Here it's only underline, but it's difficult to define which is a formatting and which is a hyperlink. So that was the reason for recommending you to avoid the underlining whenever possible. If I want to format the cells, let me show you how to do it. We can press on Control, keep pressed, Shift and F, and that will open that specific format. That I can turn it into bold, bold italic, increase the size, and so on and so forth. So the Control, Shift and F from formatting will allow you to open the formatting option. If I want to copy that cell, I can press and keep press the Control and C. You can see the borders which are animated now, and press on Control V to visualize it in a different cell. That would be the copy paste, the Control C, Control V. If I want to, let's say, to copy that the same, here Control V, and then press on Control X to cut it. Now that one is selected, and if I'm doing exactly the same thing, the Control V, that will transpose my data to a different cell. Now it's transferred, it's no longer copied. That would be the difference between copy paste and cut paste. If I want to print something, so really to keep the alphabet under control, I can press on the Control P from print, and this will show up. And this will also allow me to see the visualization for a printing purpose. As I was mentioning in the printing related videos, and when we were discussing about the menu, you need to be prepared before printing something, because by default your layout might not be that perfect or might not be ready for printing. Now let's imagine that I cut the C from here to here by mistake, and I want to reverse that action. What I can do is to press on the Control Z, A to C, to see the last action, and it moved one step back. If I want to reverse even that option, I can press on Control Y, and that will reverse the reversed. Let's call it like this. But what if I want to add some data here, here, and here? Let me also highlight it. And the data to be exactly like we have here. Let's say that here I have a E. If I'm pressing on the Control D, and Control D, as you can see, it populated with the content and the formatting of the cell above. So you can play that with that one as you wish. If I want to replicate the same content at the right, based on what we have at the left, what I can do is to press on Control R from right, and you can see I had C, I have a C. Control R, I had an E, it's an E. Control R, and it's exactly the same. Now let's move forward to finding something in Excel. And now let's also duplicate what we have here, just to play around. If I'm pressing on the CTRL F, both pressed, I have this menu. Usually it looks like this. And let's say that I want to find within the worksheet, I can confirm it, it's the worksheet, the C's in this worksheet. So I'm clicking Find Next, Find Next, Find Next, Find Next. Is going to find all my C's here. If I want to check also the C's that I have in this second sheet, what I can do is simply go to the options and then go to Workbook and find again what I had. And as you can see, it automatically moved to the second sheet that we just created. Keep in mind that we have the same window for Find and Replace. Here is the Find tab and here is the Replace tab. The options are the same, can be expanded and are the same. If I want to quickly go to the replacement option, instead of pressing Ctrl F and reaching that one, I can press the Ctrl H and it will automatically open the same pop-out with the Replace tab open. Let me close that one. And if I want to add a hyperlink, let's say that I want to add a hyperlink here, this time which would be linked to this N5 cell. So I'm pressing Ctrl K from hyperlink and placing this document. I'm in the second sheet and I said I want to go to N5. I can say here N5. Press OK. Now you can see that we have the hyperlink. It's all blue and underlined. And if I click here, it will go automatically here. From here, I can do exactly the same thing. I can press on Ctrl K at hyperlink, still second sheet, and from here to go to J1. OK. And now what will happen? I will have a connection between those two cells. So you can choose what kind of hyperlink you want to add, including links between cells. If, for instance, you wanted to create a connection between J1 from sheet number 2, let's also rename it to 2, and go to N5 from here, we can do it. So Ctrl K and then choose sheet 1, the other sheet, and here select N5. And if I click, you can notice that I'm in sheet 2. If I'm clicking here, it will reach me to sheet 1 and 5. So we can play a lot with hyperlinks. If I was on the cell M1001 here, and I wanted to go quickly back to N5, let's say, I was able to press on the Ctrl G from Go, and here to add the N5, okay, and here I am on N5. And then to get back to M1001, okay, and here I am. So with the Ctrl G, you can go where you want in your document. Now, let's imagine that we wanted, let me go back to N5. Let's imagine that we want to have a dynamic table here. What we can do is to, let me also populate this and drag it just to have some data, bit everywhere. Let me take that one, Ctrl V. Now, let's imagine that I want to create a dynamic table. What I can do, I can go to A, press and keep press, Ctrl Shift, right arrow. You can see that it went automatically till the end of my write. Then I can release the right arrow and go to the down arrow. And now I have everything selected, ready to release everything, and press on the Ctrl T from table. And I can create my table by unticking this because I don't have any header. So it's not stating here alphabet 1, 2, 3, and so forth. I can click OK. And now I have my dynamic table. Let me Ctrl Z, get back, and try another way. Let's say that I wanted to use the Ctrl L, which would have been exactly the same thing. Ctrl T from table or Ctrl L, or opening that create table option that we can see here. If I didn't want to make the selection first, but let's say that I wanted to create a table by pressing the Ctrl T again, and then choosing my range, I can click here, and I can go as I did, Ctrl Shift, right arrow, down arrow. You can see that selection here from J1 to N5. Press on the arrow, no headers again, OK, and the result is exactly the same. If I want to quickly go to the Excel options, I have the very first possibility to right click anywhere at the menu level and go to Customize Ribbon, and will take me here to the Customize Ribbon within the Excel options. So here I have General, Formulas, Data, Proofing, Save, and so on and so forth. The shortcut, as we mentioned, is Alt F T, which opens exactly the same window, which is Excel options with General, Formula, Proofing, the Save, and the Customize Ribbon. So it's up to you to choose or to switch between the shortcut or right-clicking at the menu level and then going through Customize Ribbon to get your Excel options window. If you press Ctrl 1, number 1, it will show you exactly the same format cells window like we saw before. So you can play with what you have. You can select, for instance, let's say that you want to have here the percentage, click OK. So that was E8. Let me put a 5, and you can see that's already formatted as a percentage. So you can play a lot with the formatting. If I want to strike through A, to have that middle line crossing by my cell, I can press on Ctrl 5, and you can see now that my A, I think A wasn't the best choice. Let's say that I had a C, Ctrl 5, and you can see that now 5 is strike through, or strike through, or test, and Ctrl 5. Now it's strike through. So you can see exactly what it is doing. If my Excel was having some outline symbols, I was able to press on Ctrl 8 and show the outline symbols. Because I don't have them, I have that alert from Excel, and even if I'm clicking OK here, it's not going to do anything because my Excel is not adapted to the outlines, but the Ctrl 8 will show you the outlines. If I want to hide that specific row, let's say that I want to hide that row 8, I can either go to the row, right click and press hide, and now it's hidden. It's from 7 to 9. If I want to unhide it, I can simply drag over 7 and 9, right click and unhide. Or much quicker could be to press Ctrl 9, and you can see the result. Instantly it disappeared. Let me roll back with Ctrl C. Now it's present again. If I wanted to hide that column G, I was able to press on Ctrl 0, and you can see that it disappeared. Also, if I'm going here at the column level, Ctrl 0, sorry, that hided what I had. Now I can simply unhide them or Ctrl Z or proceed with my next steps. if I want to add the current time in my Excel, I can go, let's say here, and press the Ctrl Shift colon, and here is my current time. It's actually the time of my Windows, and if I have a wrong hour, that means that that hour will show here. So now it's not at all 1:03 p.m. It's actually 8:03 p.m. But this is my Windows time, and this is exactly what shows to my Windows. So let me fix that. Let me go to my time frame. Let me find it here. Setup, sync, close. And then let me do it again. So Ctrl Shift column. You can see that now it's showing the correct time. It didn't correct the previous one. So if your current time is not set up correctly, Excel will not know and will not change it. If I want to add the current date here, I can do by pressing Ctrl and semicolon, and you can see my date. If I want to copy the formula from the cell above, I would need to have a formula in the cell above. Let's say that I have here, let's say that is blank this, and close. It's false because it's not blank. If I'm deleting it, true, delete, true, delete, true. Okay, great. Now we have the formula here, but that's a dynamic table. So what we can do, we can press on Ctrl and single quote, and that will copy our formula. But if I'm pressing enter, that will give us an error. Why? Because it's outside our dynamic table. We created a table a bit before, so let me cut that formula, and that's it. If I want really to see how this works, copy, paste as values, and here let me put the same formula, is blank, this, close parentheses. Now I need to drag it because I don't have anymore a dynamic table. And then if I'm pressing here the Ctrl and single quote, you can see that it copied my formula from up here. So this is how you can copy the formula from the cell above. If you want to delete, not to hide, but to delete columns or rows, you can simply press on Ctrl and minus sign. That menu will show up, and you can say, I want to delete the entire row, and that's deleted. If you want to insert a column, let's say that we want to add here a column, I can press on Ctrl plus, and you can see that added automatically the column. Why? Because I had the previous one selected. Let me Ctrl Z, roll back, and press again the shortcut Ctrl plus. I didn't have any column selected, so now if I click on add a column, added a column after those ones. So you can play also with the place where you have your mouse on, just to have more applicability on your shortcuts. If I was here and I wanted to have the full column selected for a specific purpose, I was able to go here and have the column selected. Or what I can do is press on Ctrl and spacebar, and you can see that my column is selected. If I want to have this row selected, number 9, what I can do is either to go here and it's everything selected, or I can go to that specific row and then click on Shift and spacebar, and everything at the row level is selected. If I want to replicate the select all option that we saw, I can press on Ctrl Shift and spacebar, and you can see everything is now selected. What I can do is also to press on Ctrl A to have everything here, or Ctrl A to have everything here, to press here. So just to keep in mind that those are not the only options to do exactly the same thing. Let me now get back to my M1001. Let me press on Ctrl G, M1001. I'm here. Okay, last time I think I put wrongly the here. I wasn't in M1001. Where did I add a row? I don't remember. So let me think and imagine that I want to return to the first cell. What I can do is to actually scroll up like this, which is so annoying. And you might have 10,000 rows or 20,000 rows, and that's not funny at all. If you're pressing on Control and Home button, here you are. You are at A1 as we were discussing. Then, if you want to move to, let's say, first to the right, because we are here, you can press on Control and right arrow, and it goes to the last cell where you have data, first cell, last cell where you have data, and then the final cell at the right. If you want to go back or to go to the left, you can keep press Control, press the left arrow, and you can see that we move around. If you are pressing Control and down arrow, it goes to the last cell where you have data, or to the very first arrow of your Excel file. 1,048,578. If I want to get back, I can keep press the Control and up arrow, and I go to the first cell, the upper cell where I have data, or even to the top cell where the data is. If I want to select the entire range, as we saw before, I can simply press on Control, Shift, right arrow, down arrow, and continue if you want to select everything. Let's say that I only want that part where I have data everywhere, and that will select my entire range. And then I can, for instance, put it all in bold, or I can press on Ctrl T and create a table, or I can do whatever I want. If you have any mouse problem or you are unable to use your mouse, you can press on the Alt button, and you can see that here now you have some letters. Let me go to a very common menu, Home, press again Alt, and here you have a letter for each one of the menu options. If I'm taking the A, for instance, I'm pressing A. A was data. So let me get back. Press on Alt. You can see for data it's A. I'm pressing A. Here is data. And then from data, I can go, for instance, to queries and connections, which is O. And now it's loading .NET Framework to open my queries and connections. So using the Alt function, what you can do is simply to use your keyboard to access the menu options without using the mouse. So you can see that it was O, it opened my queries and connections. I don't have any, so this is the reason that is not showing up. Then, if you want to think about your control on Excel, how you can move on Excel, if you want to move to the bottom, you can simply press on Enter, and that will move to the bottom. If you want to move up, you can press up, and if you want to move right, what you can do is either to press on the right key or to press on Tab. The tab will move you around the your Excel file in a right direction. we were saying that we can activate also some filters. Let me take that data, Control Shift, right down arrow, copy, and then paste it here as values. So here I have A, B, C, D, D. Let's say that I wanted to add here an A and then a C and so on and so forth. What I can do, I can press on Alt and down arrow, and you can see that I have that instant filter. I can add here A, Alt, down arrow, and here my C. And if you had tens, for instance, of data references here, by pressing the Alt and down arrow, you are able to choose from those ones without applicating a filter, without doing, for instance, selecting all of these and then going to data, filter, and here you would have a real filter. That Alt and down arrow will allow you to have that instant filter that can simplify your life. Let's say that I want to have A, B, C, D on the same cell on different lines. What I can do, let me take that part, copy, paste. If I'm putting here A and I'm pressing enter to add a line, it will lead me to a B here, but I want to have it in the same cell. I can go and select that specific cell. You can see the typing flashing, the typing sign flashing, and by pressing Alt Enter, that will give me a new paragraph. Alt Enter C, Alt Enter D, Alt Enter space, Alt Enter E, and press Enter. And you can see that I have different paragraphs, different lines within the same cell. If you want to zoom in, you can simply press on Ctrl Alt plus, and you can zoom in your document. If you want to zoom out, you can press Ctrl Alt again and minus to zoom out. And that would be the practical application that we have for the 50 simple shortcuts that we have in Excel. I hope you enjoy it. If you have any questions, just let me know in the comments below. Please do like that video, subscribe to my channel, and see you soon. Bye bye.